As you've been around the block a time or two, you know that there are different styles of preaching. And I've always been someone that tried to incorporate storytelling into my sermons, mainly because as you mine your own experience, you usually can find something that may touch on the experience of those that you are talking to. And so as I was trying to come up with a story for some kind of illustration for our gospel lesson today, I was really having a hard time. As I tried to think back, I'm finding that as the decades start to tick off, my access to my personal history is becoming a little diminished as some of my stories begin to fade far enough in the background that they're harder to recall. And I sat there and I'm thinking, and I'm like, oh man, what am I going to tell them on Sunday? I can't think of anything. And then all I could think of was how cold my feet were, right? Because this is that time of year where the furnace doesn't know whether to kick on and the air conditioner doesn't know when to turn off, and it probably should just shut everything down and just open the windows would be the smart thing to do. But my feet are freezing, and that led me to a story. When I was in elementary school, I had a classmate named Jimmy, and you may have had a classmate like this when you were in school as well. Jimmy was the smallest kid in the class. He always showed up in the morning with clothes that were sort of raggedy. His hair was never combed. He was always dirty and had smudges of what looked like soot on him as he came in. And he didn't smell all that great. He smelled like a campfire. And as you can imagine, Jimmy did not have an easy time of things in elementary school. The target of bullying and jokes and harassment. And I look back on that time and regret that I didn't do more to help him out. I'm sure we all have regrets like that. But I do remember one morning, I think it was in about third grade, when Jimmy came into class and we were hanging up our coats on coat racks that they had along one side of the classroom way back when. And his face was beaming. He was just so happy. And so I couldn't help myself. I remember saying, Jimmy, why are you so happy? He said, well, my grandma gave us a kerosene heater. I didn't have to shovel coal this morning. Now, this is 1980s, not 1880s. But Jimmy was in a household without much money, and they used a coal furnace to heat it. As the youngest kid in the family, I came to find out later, his dad gave him the responsibility of getting up at 4:30 in the morning to shovel coal into the furnace. There was no time or much clean water to get ready for school, and so he shoveled coal and shoveled some more coal, and then was shuffled off to the school bus. He was just so happy, though, about something as simple as a kerosene heater. I think that was the first moment where I realized how much I actually had. Became aware of it for the first time and experienced a sense of gratitude when my story touched someone else's story in a way that opened my eyes. Gratitude is a powerful thing. And when gratitude is connected to faith, it is far more than an attitude. It has the very real power to change us and to change the world around us. You see, we are not born as grateful creatures. Like most virtues, it grows in us over time. As we reflect on our own experiences and the experiences of others, while God's Spirit mysteriously fosters this growth inside of us. Well, that's how it's supposed to work. But if we don't reflect on anything and are so self-consumed that we don't pay attention to the stories of those around us, then gratitude will seem like a stranger to us. We've all met that person, right? Haven't we? I met this person, this hypothetical person, several times while I was doing hospice chaplaincy. It is the person who sits alone, usually in the corner of the nursing home common area, who has nothing good to say to anyone. Their thoughts are a litany of complaint. The food, terrible. The staff, terrible. You, terrible. The world, terrible. We may know that person. Their closed and furrowed face reflects the unending litany of negativity that has consumed their thoughts. And our brains are like dirt roads. The more we run over the same track, the deeper the rut gets and the harder it is to get out of it. And so when a person's caught in this cycle of negativity, gratitude is the farthest things from their minds as they become consumed with just the things that are wrong, just the things that haven't turned out the way they hoped they would. Now, none of us want to end up that way. So remember that that person didn't get there overnight. Choice after choice after choice reinforced their thinking and led them into the corner of that room. And so choosing to be grateful can lead us into a different place. And we probably know that person too. The person who, in spite of age and failing health and personal tragedy compounded by tragedy, can still light the room with a gentle smile. That person says thank you more often than those who are around them. If I were to pick, I know what kind of person I want to be someday. I know which one of those two I want to be. Thomas Merton, the Cistercian monk and spiritual writer from mainly the 1960s and 70s, wrote, "To be grateful is to recognize the love of God in everything He has given us, and He has given us everything. Every breath we draw is a gift of His love. Every moment of existence is a grace, for it brings with it immense graces from Him. Gratitude, therefore, takes nothing for granted. It is never unresponsive. It is constantly awakening to new wonder and to praise of the goodness of God. For the grateful person knows that God is good, not by hearsay, but by experience. And that is what makes all the difference." Now that's a beautiful quote, and it is true, but that doesn't make gratitude easy, because life is not easy. But that doesn't take away from the power that gratitude can have. In fact, when things are not going well, when things haven't turned out the way we had hoped, when we find ourselves struggling, gratitude has the most power of all. So let's make gratitude our practice this week. Let's take stock of what kind of person we're becoming. Keep track of your complaints versus your thank yous. If you don't like what you find as you take that tally, don't get too down on yourself. God is the author of gratitude, and remember that He loves you no matter what. And always remember that God has the power to do in you what you cannot do for yourself.